Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table. You are listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And it is going to be a hot one today as we bring a topic to the table that everybody wants to pay attention to. Folks, are you hungry to make money? Is a question we have for you, as we're going to be talking about investing in food today on Money on Tap. Folks, my name's Seth Crustman, and joined here today with three of the handsomest devils that I could ever spend time with. But would you please introduce yourself, sir?
Good morning, Seth. This is Ben Brascia. How you guys all doing today?
I'm doing great. Dan Michelon on board here.
And Tony Scola over here, doing great as well.
I'm interested in this show. This is Dan's idea.
Hey, food is near and dear to my heart, you know, and it's unfortunately taking a bigger bite out of my wallet each and every time.
Yeah, right.
Can't get in and out of the grocery store for under $100. It's literally impossible.
Oh, I know.
And that is going up. It's every time you turn around, it's like it's $103.
There's no really irrelevant inflation going on, according to Powell. So whatever. No big deal.
We've got some numbers to share that might counter that point.
Well, whatever. I'm still not going to believe it. It's not inflating.
Transitory. That's the word, right?
Folks, if you've never joined us here at Money on Tap, well, we're going to have fun. We're going to talk about money and investing. And one of the things that we focus on here is three-dimensional investing. And we use this term all the time when sitting down with our clients and taking a look at how do we help people retire? How do we help them accomplish their goals? And not only we're going to have some fun with this, we're bringing to the table, like Dan said, near and dear to our hearts. And we're going to be talking about food stocks, different ways that you can be an investor in this sector or sectors, because there's several of them. But it is not, we're not just talking about stocks here at Money on Tap. We are planners with Brascia Financial Group. And when we're sitting down and talking with our clients, this is part of the conversation that we have with them. It's portfolios, it's investing, it's protecting, it's all of the pieces that are critical for people in their retirement. So that's just a little bit about us. And as you can't tell yet, we're going to have a good time as we jump into money in the news.
Well, first up today, listeners, we have an article that comes out of CNBC. It's by Francisco Velasquez, and it is the 11 worst U.S. states for retirement in 2021, which is honestly, some of these were not surprising, but some of them were kind of interesting. But I think the thing that's, when people talk about best or worst states, when we've done shows on the best state, right, Dan? I mean, we've done every scenario of this kind of stuff because people are really interested. Like, where should I kind of like settle in? Like, if I'm looking for a place, and a lot of that really has to do with family and, maybe temperature. Do you want a dry, a humid? There's a lot of different things that move into it. But when you're talking about that, that personal factor is one item. This article here focuses on 5 key areas, which is affordability, wellness, culture, weather, and crime. And I think we kind of remarked after reading.
That's not wellness, culture. Those were 2 separate categories, right?
Yeah, wellness, culture, weather, and crime.
There was a comma in there.
Yes.
Okay.
That's all right. But the thing that I think is interesting, I think we all settled on the fact that crime probably played a really relevant part in this whole concept of the 11 worst states. So,
I mean, the whole country these days, it's it's really depressing in the news, and you certainly don't want to retire to a spot where you need to be fearful at all times.
Well, there's some states that weren't on there that I was surprised weren't.
Right. In the same note, from the same reason you're just talking about, there's some states that showed up that were a surprise to us for that reason.
Yeah, no, exactly. Number 11, which was not quite the worst state to retire, I guess, was Washington State. I was kind of surprised by that. I was actually surprised that when we went through the whole list, Seth, that Oregon didn't even make it.
You were rooting for Oregon to get in there somehow, some way, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. I was like, hey, how did they not make the top 10?
Yeah, I mean, because we are terrible when it comes to pretty much everything. Just throw us into the bucket of we're just,
Well, it's nice to know that New Hampshire didn't make it in. that was good because some of our neighbors did. So,
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is that when I went through this, there's a couple states that I remarked, and we all remarked. I was surprised Idaho was number 9, tied with Connecticut. I think of Idaho as kind of like a decently ranked, good place to, it's kind of, I think of old, I don't know.
Assume it to be affordable. You can get all the space you want, and
Well, I think that if you look at it, that seems to be the challenge because the things you would think that are good are the wellness and culture. Well, actually, I would think that Connecticut would have higher culture, but it's flipped in this survey here.
Yeah.
And affordability is also the other way around.
Right.
Well, actually, it's not the other way around, but
Well, they had so they ranked everything on a 50 scale for all 50 states, and so
Oh, that made more sense now that I'm looking at the numbers.
you guys are all figuring that out. Clearly, I read the article. So. All right. So what was interesting about this is that the affordability rank, the lower the number, if you were number 1, you were definitely a better place to be. If you were in the higher, like for instance, Connecticut affordability rank is 49. So probably New York or California is number 50, right? So I think that was interesting. But Connecticut had a decent wellness and culture rank, which was interesting. They were like 7 and 9. So I mean, their average score was kind of, I guess the affordability just knocked them way down.
yeah, skewed by the cost.
I thought it was interesting too. California didn't hit the list either, but the next few were kind of surprising to me. Alabama and Arkansas. I mean, I don't necessarily, I guess they're just talking about wellness and culture rank. Really, we're not strong in Alabama.
But yeah, when you're 49 at Arkansas, when you're 49 in the wellness rank, you're probably spending a little bit too much time at Hardee's.
Well, that or you just need to get a few more doctors in the community. So
Okay, that could be part of it.
well, having family in Alabama, I could, and we're having the topic of food. They do like their barbecue, fried food, and processed.
Well, it's tailgate every
Could
day,
you-
right?
Exactly.
Hey, Ben, could you explain the culture to me? Because I really need somebody that's read this article to just walk me through it, too, because I'm not quite sure what that all meant.
if you don't have culture, Seth, it's really hard to explain it to you.
What we don't, so it's probably why.
You guys are 44. No, I'm just
I can
kidding.
see why Seth is asking that, though. Maybe because Maine's number 1?
Well, that's, I think, the interesting part, right? So Maine, I think I don't know if the culture is really just kind of like the fact that it's seaside, that there's kind of this euphoric, like, oceanside. We were just up in Maine this last weekend, and it's great. You go up there, but dead of winter, it's not fun. I mean,
It is vacation land after all, right?
And that's what they call it, right? So, good point, Dan. Good point. Alaska didn't really surprise me from a standpoint of, if you're really looking to retire, you're probably not looking to split wood half the year, at least.
Well, it's interesting to look at the rankings, though. They're kind of right in the middle of the pack across the board.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, the next few.
You don't have to, so you definitely don't have to be terrible at one or two of these categories. You can just kind of, be meh.
Yeah.
And your
Well, we zip down through 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so we've got Montana as 4, Kansas as 3. I just don't think Kansas is a bad place to retire, but whatever. And then you got Minnesota, which, I looking at any of the news over the last year, I never want to go to Minnesota again. And Dan and I have spent a lot of time in Minnesota.
A lot of time there.
But number 1, which is Dan's birthplace,
That's right.
is Maryland, which I had a lot of early comments
Go
on.
Terps.
Very, very proud former Terrapin, yeah.
So, but I think what's really interesting to me when we broke this down, we were just talking about how there was a lot of there's a lot of retirement communities. They're being built up everywhere. So it's got to be, I would say it's got to be a lot of the crime issues that's driving that and the affordability.
It could be, or maybe it's all that fried crab too.
I was just gonna say, I do love that Bay seasoned crab meat. It's so good.
You gotta hand it to Maryland for the wellness rank of 4, though. That was, it's not all bad, right? I mean, affordability 47 and culture 39, not really hitting it out of the park on either one of those, but a wellness rank of 4. Good job.
But I'm surprised there's no New York, there's no California. You just think of cost. You think that would be through the roof, even Massachusetts. Just very surprising.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of, some of the states that made this list just don't make sense to me. But I will say that it gives you a perspective on something other than, where family is and taxes and, there's a number of other ways to look at this. So.
Well, I see everybody didn't read the entire article because now that we're down at the bottom, we see that there's different weighting for each category as well.
That's correct.
It's not equal across the board. So I see that. Crime is only 10%.
Yeah. But it weighs in heavily when you look at Baltimore, I guess.
Yeah, you would think it would be higher, especially for retirees who might feel a little bit more.
Well, I think about what's going on in Chicago. Why aren't they on the list? Come on, CNBC. I mean, that's ridiculous. Just like take Illinois right out of there. All right.
I was going to say, Chicago's a city. Not
no, I know.
You guys, you're going to have to make a little room for me on this one, and I do apologize, but this is an article by Zusha Ellenson, and this is from the Wall Street Journal, folks. This is not my local love-hate paper of the Oregonian here in Portland, Oregon, but this is the Wall Street Journal. The headline here is Portland, Oregon can't find police for unit to fight rising murder rate. And if you don't remember, this time last year, we had our hands full in Portland. You just didn't really go downtown, and unless you were wanting to be right there in the middle of the war zone, especially at night. And it was interesting. We had an estate planning attorney on with us here about that time, and he said it was a weirdest thing during the middle of the day. It was kind of like what was it, George and Fred, the cartoon of the sheepdog and the coyote that. When
Sam and Ralph.
Everything's fine. Yes, Sam and Ralph. Everything's fine. Good morning. Good morning. They clock in. It was on. So it was like once the sun went down in Portland, everybody the coffee cups went aside and everybody shaking hands went aside, and it was full blown riot, and or protest, whatever you want to call it. But that's what Portland has set the record for last year. And so it's no surprise here with the vilification of some of these, used to be coveted positions. Just people are not interested in covering this. And we have a rising crime rate and homicide rate that's, on par to set a new record for us, which was back in 1987 when all of it was really breaking free with, crack and that crime wave.
Well, it's kind of interesting to me that when you read it, you're like, there was 14 job openings. I can't imagine why. But they only had 4 applications.
That's actually unbelievable.
Right? I mean, these aren't even people that, I'm just trying to figure out what kind of police officer. Either it's the next, good do-gooder RoboCop guy. Or you remember, and
having a military law enforcement family is such. I definitely have a lot of friends in that area, and it's typically a pretty desirable position based on job security, benefits, retirement plans, etc.
I'm just thinking you have 4 applications. How many of those police are saying to themselves, I can't get a job anywhere else, I'm going to Portland? Or you're the RoboCop guy. You're the guy who's saying, I'm going to do good for the whole world and we're going to solve Portland's problems. But that's not a...
Sure. Well, I remember up here. A demographic up here in New Hampshire is not like these major cities. I remember Concord had, years back, I think 7 openings they advertised for, and they had somewhere around 140 applicants.
Yeah, it's crazy. Honestly, up here, there's not a lot of crime. So,
it used to be a job that held some prestige. Now you just...
Well, in New Hampshire, we solve most of the crime before the police get here. Deal with it ourselves. Moving on. All right, Dan, you want to take us into the next article?
Sure. It was this one plays right into kind of the topic of the show for us, but there was a major change made in pop media and the food industry all at once, and it was The iconic Campbell's soup can is experiencing its first change in 50 years. I think we all can picture the Andy Warhol work of art with all those images of the can.
Yeah.
And you would think that that would just kind of live on into eternity, but no. It's another one of those classic Americana images that is due for some change.
Some millennial convinced somebody to change this Campbell soup can and change America.
Yeah, in fact, on that topic, they made an NFT out of it, one of these non-fungible tokens, and,
Yeah.
see where that goes.
They're going to make a bunch of money.
Come on,
and
commoditize anything.
Donate it to charity, which is cool. I think that's good. I think that's but I it's probably the only thing I can really find in the store. Like if my wife sends me to, hey, go get me this XYZ article, aisle bubble, and I come back like 10 minutes later, I can't find it. She's like, what do you mean you can't find it? It's got to be there. I always get it, and half the time it's not there. The other half the time it is there. She sends me out to get Campbell soup. Like, I got this one down. Like, why would you change it?
Yeah, it really makes no sense. I don't get it. It's truly one of the more recognizable things in the entire grocery store by far.
You walk by and it is like half of an aisle. Like you can't miss it. So I mean, the dumb guy shopping thing walks in. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's Campbell soup. I got it.
Okay.
You know what I see happening? This is what I see happening, at least in Portland here. Do you remember when New Coke came out?
Oh yeah.
The images burned in my mind were people taking the 2 liters of Coke and pouring them out in the street. Well, guess what, folks? Portland, we're about to start grabbing Campbell's soup cans and pouring them out in the street, and we're probably just going to riot over this. It's been a while.
There's nothing good to go on right now. Again, what can you say?
Yeah.
It'd make a heck of a projectile if you need to, right? You toss one of those things pretty far.
Yeah. Well, it goes into our food investing story.
That's going to do it for Money in the News. You are listening to Money on Tap, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're going to be right back, and when we are, we're going to be talking about more food. We're going to be talking about, are you hungry to make money? And the different ways that you can be an investor in, well, food.
For a number of our listeners, they have a lot of questions, and you might be one of them. Today, we're just offering what we call Zoominars, webinars over Zoom meeting rooms, where we have top experts, Social Security, estate planning, and financial planning experts for you to speak with, do a private consultation that way today. We're also having webinar-based Zoominars where we're going to have multiple groups where you can be part of that and enjoy that as well. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com to schedule your Zoominar.
More Money on Tap in just a moment. The financial planning industry has changed, much of it brought on by the pandemic. On this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, Ben and Seth take a look at the overall effect this is having on the consumer.
It has become an awareness that we've had as we've been doing our business daily in the office and staying open and making sure that our clients are cared for and their needs are met, that there's been a shift in our industry of financial planning and planners that frankly are not covering a lot of the bases that they used to.
A lot of companies had to shut down legally. This office, Brayshaw Financial Group, and what we do, we have all been in our office every day for the last year and a half, 2 years through the pandemic without one day of us working remotely. It has a lot of intrinsic value around the importance of managing clients' assets, being responsible for clients, and taking care of needs from all sorts of concerns that have arisen out of this pandemic. But as we see this and as we see what's going on in the industry, there's so many advisors that are not working from their office. And their offices are refusing to come back. And there's concern about that. And we all know on some level that working remotely is not as effective in the grand scheme of the financial markets.
Thanks for joining us for this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, with great tips from the pros in three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. Now here's more Money on Tap with Seth and Ben.
You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And if you're out there in the podcast world, we want to thank you for joining us via podcast. And Spreaker is where we distribute our podcast. But you know what? You probably get it from Apple Music or Spotify or wherever you're out there listening. We just want to thank you, too. And what we're talking about today is we're talking about several things within this topic, but we're talking about food. Are you hungry to make money, and how can you make money if you're investing today in food?
Well, I think the conversation we have with a lot of people is, what are we investing in now, or where are we looking at things, and how are hey, this is costing me a lot, and a lot of the evaluation is where do we see money being spent, right? I mean, that's one of the things. It's a supply and demand conversation in every investment piece. I mean, at the end of the day, stocks sometimes move completely indiscriminately with no reason, no anything. And that's just because of speculation, right? But then there's the entire supply and demand component that really drives an asset to be more valuable, because there's just a demand that's greater than the supply, and therefore the cost of something goes up, and then the stock starts making, the company starts making more money, and then that's reflected in the stock. A lot of conversation we've had recently with people is that, hey, I'm spending a lot of money on food. And it's like, hey, we look at it and say, yeah, we know you're spending a lot of money on food, and we're looking at those things. And so people have asked, where do you put money if you really want to invest in food? And so we started doing some research. Dan came up with some articles which were interesting. I think we're going to share today, which, talks about some stocks that this person who wrote the article thinks are opportunities or ways to go. Some of them I don't actually agree with. I think kind of its opportunity is potentially past, but by the time it actually hits mainstream media, we've either already taken a position in it or we're not going to take a position in it. So I think everyone who's listening to the show, take this as a grain of salt, but it's really good because these industries are cyclical. These industries are areas where you can make a lot of money potentially in a certain time period, and you're not necessarily going to make money in other time periods. And you can get vulnerable in a stock very quickly when you buy too high. And I think that's happened in a couple of the companies that we're actually going to have in this particular article going through it. But I think we're going to also talk about, as we break through this, Seth, the different areas of food that drive the entire purchase power of food, right? So I think when we talk about food, people think, whatever, McDonald's or, Wendy's or, grocery store or, there's a lot of, but all the components that are involved before you actually see food on your table is phenomenal, and it's enormous. It's huge. So the gamut is large. The opportunities are, unfathomably large and too numerous to count. But I think it's good to talk about those sectors and those domains and then kind of get granular a little bit as we go through this. So I'm going to just kind of open it up with the first one. I mean, the obvious piece to food investing is farming. I think that's really what drives the initial piece, right? We're growing food, so there's farm, there's agriculture, there's all of those pieces. And so then when you start getting into farms, right, we start talking about the equipment, we start talking about, the fertilizers, everything from
packaging, processing.
Yeah, there's just a number of those different regions of that go into just the farming piece. And so as we're kind of looking at that, I think it's important to understand that when you're investing in a company, you're investing in something that I believe should have value. When you're investing in any stock, you should have a value-based perspective and really drive the concept of saying, well, you know what? And I'm just speaking hypothetically here. Hey, fertilizer is way oversold in the stock space, but in Tony's example here, packaging is just, the stock is really low compared to, what kind of volume's going on there and so forth. So maybe there's value, there's opportunity, there's an investment potential in packaging where somebody who's already, if the fertilizer side or the whatever agricultural piece is already skyrocketed because that's where everyone went first, you got to look for that value space, and I think that's really kind of the conversation that I think we want to have today.
Yeah, I mean, it's as I begin to think about this, we've often had the conversation with people that are either beginner investors or novice investors. They say, well, hey, listen, I've always been told, buy what you like. So you immediately go to, McDonald's, Chipotle. Some of these stocks have performed incredibly well and are just becoming, incredibly highly priced stocks. But then there's been other things that are a little bit of an outlier there. Beyond Meat was an example of, it was super hot for a little while, and it was the kind of the stock of the day for a period of time because they were a niche market without a lot of contenders. But you look at it now, and it's $100 off a tie. So you do need to be careful with that whole notion of buy what you like, and really consider kind of the deeper dive on that and who the suppliers are, who the distributors are. And lately we've seen a lot of these delivery services get hot, obviously, with the whole pandemic issue. And then there's companies that you wouldn't even necessarily associate with being in the food industry, but Amazon and Walmart, who offer these delivery services. Uber Eats is another one that you hear about.
Yeah. And the thing is the concept of where food's going and how it's going. I mean, travel around food is huge, right? Especially with the pandemic. I mean, we've all reevaluated what, these delivery companies are. Everyone is a food delivery person. I mean, my daughter was delivering for, I don't know, some company. I was like, okay, here's your mace. Let's get you your concealed carry permit. I mean, I'm like, you can only tell a 20-some-odd-year-old girl how much she can do, but I don't really feel that as being a safe thing. I know my parents would have said that was stupid for me, but I've told her what I thought. But that is a real industry that's growing. It's all around food.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to have it, right? It's one of those essential things in living. You have to eat. Got to keep food in the fridge.
I'm really curious how this whole thing, because I think that piece has changed the perspective on food over the next of how you get your food. I mean, it's.
And that's a good point, because it's not just as simple as everybody eats, so food is always going to be in demand. Yes, it is, but you guys mentioned delivery, transportation, with fuel prices and the fact that everything now is really in demand from transportation standpoint, having delivery to homes and things like that. Sometimes it can slow it down, or weather. I have a close friend who is in the farming business, and they had a couple back-to-back storms out in the Midwest and just pretty much destroyed their year's worth of production, which obviously is going to have an impact on the pricing, which is going to have kind of roll up to you as an investor. So there's definitely risk involved as well, that are outside of just knowing, as Dan said, just hey, I'm going to invest in what I like, and I like Oreo cookies, so I'm going to invest in Nabisco. If that's the correct manufacturer, I'm not sure. I'm not allowed to have cookies, but
I saw something on social media.
Cupcakes are good, right?
Cupcakes are good. Yeah, those are homemade.
Okay,
wholesome ingredients, all pure sugar and butter.
Yeah, pure sugar, kill you,
and butter.
So one of the principal places that we're coming back to, and you're going to hear a lot of these the terminology that we're kind of sourcing things through. For instance, there's the thought of a farm, and what does a farm grow? And it grows this. It grows pork. It grows soybeans.
It doesn't
grow
grow
corn.
It raises pork.
You know what? Depends what part of the country you're in. But over here in Oregon, we do grow pork. So there you go.
In the form of Slim Jims. They come out of the ground like asparagus. It's like
each one of these items are places that are commodities, and commodities are one of the original places or original ways that things were traded. I mean, going back into early market days. I mean, these are one of the early investment places where people could trade their goods and services to, be able to make a profit and turn around and
and do something else with that money that they might need to do. And
Pork
so,
bellies,
yeah,
right? Most people have heard of
Yeah.
that. Pork bellies.
right. And then there's the futures. And so the basis for a lot of what we're talking about, and we've been going into manufacturing and all these different ways that people are, or organizations in companies are, orienting themselves around. It all starts from those commodities. And, so if you're interested in that piece of, the investment chain, sugarcane or whatever, but let's say you wouldn't be, let's just say for whatever reason you think there was a shortage in oranges or whatever the thing was this last year, and you think, well, that's an opportunity. There are ways to invest in these sectors, and the ETF or these ETFs and ETNs are one of the places where people have been able to source different ways to invest in commodities too. So there's another side of this as well, that you may not want to just be investing in the company itself, like Amazon or whatever that happens to be. Maybe you're really trying to take a look at the sector as a whole. So there's lots of different ways to be investing in food, but it's an interesting place for us to spend some time when taking a look at in investing, because not only because maybe we're passionate about it, but also because there's an opportunity to invest, and there's also with that risk involved with any one of these. And Ben, we started talking early about investing and these being, a lot of them being cyclical investments, but it doesn't, that isn't the case for all of it, because some of it is, based on innovation. Right? Maybe it's innovation in the packaging. Maybe it's innovation in delivery with the Uber Eats or something along those lines. But there's also the innovation in the food itself, where we've seen Beyond Meat come to the market and just go through, a skyrocket and then a pullback in that as well. But there's all these different sectors or areas that people can engage with investing in food, and how to do that. And I'm just going to share from experience where well, actually it wasn't my experience. I wasn't born yet, but my grandfather was a regional or a manager for Deere and Company. So he was on the machinery side of things. And this is a huge industry, but the way that he would invest in John Deere is he was a cyclical trader. He knew when or what time of the year that the stock was going to pull back, and about what time of the year it was going to raise up. And so he would trade based off of his knowledge and understanding of his industry and those trends. For a lot of what food is, or what we see with food and investing, unless you're really in the know of how to do that, it can be a very risky place to be investing. But there's also the other side of that too. It can be pretty darn exciting.
That's a good point, Seth. I mean, other than your grandfather's insider trading, which
that's I think that's an SEC violation.
Yeah,
Seth.
but since he's no longer here, I think he's covered. Okay, so, but no, but in all seriousness, you're right. There's an interesting conversation around innovation of food, and the historical trust of food. Right? We just talked about Campbell's soup, and we've all had Campbell's soup. Right? I mean, and it's a trusted brand. That's why it takes up as a, sarcastically, we talked about half the aisle and all that stuff. It's a trusted brand. But the innovation of food is something that is changing. I mean, everything from, as you said, Seth, the Beyond Meat, the veggie burger, whatever, soy, whatever it is. I mean, I honestly don't know what it is. So, but there's that innovation piece. I'm not interested in a Beyond Meat. We've had a couple conversations about this, folks, off the record. So, but that being said, right, there's like the GMOs, right, like genetically modified organisms, as it's actually it's scary to even say that, but and I have obviously my slant, right? I mean, my wife is studied nutrition in college. She's a certified health coach. I mean, so I hear about all the bad stuff in food all day long, which is great. I mean, I've become a much healthier eater. Not to my desire. And, but there's a lot of development in the food industry, and there's a lot of people who have the investment side of the agricultural chemical side, right? Let's get serious, because the reason we can provide as much food as we do to the table with as few farms as we do. I mean, we pay farmers not to produce food in this country. So we pay them to just not grow food because we have too much of it. And that's an interesting conversation. Our government forks out these monies because they know that they need to keep the farms around so that if we need to create food, we have the farming there. But at the same time, we have become so chemically dependent and capable. I mean, right? So you can think that chemicals are bad, or you could think they're good and they've accomplished the creation of food, or you can think they're bad because it creates food that maybe is not good for you, depending on what side of the table you land on that. No pun intended on the table comment, but but the truth is that there is a massive chemical investment in food, and we're not. A lot of people don't talk about it. I mean, everything from Bayer, or Dow or DuPont, they split this last year, and all these companies are creating stuff, but then you look at the risk. And we were chatting about this, and the risk, folks, as you're listening to this, is companies like Bayer who acquired Monsanto. They're the makers of Roundup, who are under a huge lawsuit issue that's completely undetermined. And so you might buy a company that's pushing out one great chemical that's solving world hunger, but in the same boat they just killed all these people from cancer, and next thing you know that the stock's tanking.
Yeah, they protect these crops and allow them to be plentiful and bountiful, but at what cost? So we don't all have the opportunity to be organic chemists and understand truly what's going on there. So that's one of those things that choose wisely when it comes to picking a stock of such a niche marketplace.
Yeah. So I think folks, from the chemical piece, there is a lot to be invested in there. There's a lot of companies we could go through. We're not going to do that today. We kind of want to get to some of the one particular articles we dig through this, but this article is from Timothy Green. It's dated July 19th, 2021, Investing in Food Stocks. And it does have the concept of best food stocks to buy. And I would just tell you straight up, I don't agree with this at all. But I do think having the conversation about these stocks, both the vulnerability and the opportunity, are conversations that you should, talk with your advisor directly on. But, one of the stocks he talks about is General Mills. And I found it interesting that he brings this up, because General Mills, you're talking Pillsbury, Cheerios, Haagen-Dazs, Progresso, right? Green Giant, Yoplait, there's 1,000. And honestly, from a COVID-19 opportunity, this was huge. I mean, this was a driver, this was and so forth. But if you got all wrapped up into this during COVID-19, you'd be down 15% right now. And I think that's the thing, that the vulnerability piece is here. People think General Mills food never going away. Well, yeah, it might not. I mean, there's always a risk to a stock. You could lose all your money. And yeah, they have a yield, they have a dividend out there, but you have to sit around a long time to take their dividend and make up a 15% loss. And I think that's one of the things out there that people don't really understand is you could buy a very strong, very capable company providing a huge service, and you can take a huge dump. Now, is this an opportunity to buy or not? I have no idea. And it's not a stock we follow on a regular basis, nor do we have. I mean, I don't think I can think of a client that owns it in their portfolio today. But it is a conversation because everyone knows that the General Mills family brand,
a major supplier to all of our favorite grocery stores, and it's it's a household name. It's a major brand, but that doesn't make it a great investment opportunity.
Yeah, no, exactly. They do go on to some of the. I mean, these are all. I mean, and really, what's named in this article is probably 5 or 6 of probably the most well-known kind of companies. So I mean, whether or not he's just taking a stab at this, I have no idea what research is behind it. But he does talk about Tyson Foods. Again, all of these and everything that's referenced were pretty much COVID-19, go-tos, right? I mean, we start digging through. You got Mondelez International, Pepsi. I mean, why Pepsi and not Coke? I have no idea. I mean, really kind of interesting because I think, those are holdings that we do look at and we do evaluate one or the other.
Yeah, I believe his feeling on that was Coke took a bigger hit due to restaurant closures and the pullback on people eating out. I think Coca-Cola is a much larger supplier of beverages to restaurant type places, so they took a bigger hit, and I think that's why I saw maybe Pepsi a little bit better opportunity. But
yeah,
that was my takeaway.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong on this as well, but just the diversification of Pepsi really having some of those brands like Quaker Oats and Cheetos and some of the other stuff that they really hold inside of the company. Those were all brands that I think were stalwarts of most of the American diet, and especially Cheetos. So
Well, that's a good point, Seth. But as Ben mentioned, this article was middle of July, but just as of yesterday, there was some news out about Pepsi actually breaking up some of their juice brands like Naked Juices and some of their others, and I think they sold to a French company. And anyway, so there's always movement, I guess is my point here, is that like they said about General Mills, a lot of these companies, the name, household names, they're very diversified in the products, and sometimes that they can change.
I think the one area that I would probably say that I wholeheartedly agree with, and whether or not I don't necessarily know which stock to go to, and I wouldn't give a recommendation here, but the one area I do think is a very opportunistic area is the grocery store stocks. I do think the grocery store area, it's an evolving world. I mean, every time you go into a grocery store, it's packed. It doesn't matter whether it's COVID, not COVID, summer, winter, what, right? I mean, grocery stores have become a place to go, separate from like, hey, I go there once a week, right? How many times do you go to the grocery store now? And I think about when we travel, we even do it more. We're like, hey, why don't we and I had this thought the other day driving by a grocery store. I was like, I should just stop there and grab a salad because I know they have a salad bar. But you think about like Wegmans, I know they're privately owned, but you have a couple of these places out there where they're literally setting them up as like multiple restaurants. And if you don't like the restaurants, go to our big bakery area or some.
Oh, yeah, they have cafes, delis.
The things you're bringing up is the question of even what is a grocery store anymore, right? Because you're going there for a salad or the bakery, but they've had bakeries for years and years. But some of the diversification inside of those grocery store, for instance, Whole Foods, which is Amazon.
Yeah. And I think you made a point, Seth, earlier where you're like, what is Amazon? Is Amazon an online distributor? Are they a grocery store? Are they, we're going to have food shipped to our house. So at some point in time, your shopping is going to take place. Your shopping is just going to be the delivery of your food. I mean, we get all of our soda and seltzers and all that stuff. We actually don't drink soda, but the whatever third-party equivalent that's no sugar in it. It just gets shipped to our house.
Water.
Why? Because, yeah, right. Why? Because no one wants to carry it through the grocery store anymore. They don't have to. And it doesn't cost any more to get it directly.
Folks, you're listening to Money on Tap, and we're talking about, are you hungry to make money? We're talking about investing in food. And when we come back, there's going to be, more talk. So we can't wait to come back with some more of the talk about, some of the trends, some of the places where we really have seen more of these movements happening in food. And you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We'll be right back. Hey folks, Seth Cressman, Brayshaw Financial Group is our company, and we bring to you Money on Tap. I say we, that's Ben and I. We have a lot of fun doing this show. And one of the things that we love about doing Money on Tap is that our goal for you to have access to the financial planning world. How do we think? What are we doing? What are we talking about? Raising the bar of your financial education. It's so critical. And that's what we're doing here. The other side of this is as well, we're financial planners. If you are looking to work with a financial planner, if you want to have that playbook for you to understand the important things right now and how you're going to get to your goals or how you're going to retire successfully, that's what we're doing as well. If you have $250,000 of investable assets, give us a call. It's free to you, and it is worth your time to pick up that phone and give us a call and discover what complete wealth management looks like. Ben and I are excited about the opportunity to partner with you and give you that financial plan that's going to make the next step so much better understood and get you where you need to go.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info
Hey
at
folks, Seth Cressman,
yourmoneyontap.com.
Brayshaw Financial Group is our company, and we
have been talking about
Money on Tap. I say we, that's Ben and I. We have a lot of fun doing this show. And one of the things that we love about
whether it's
doing Money on Tap is
commodities,
that our goal for you to have access
comes out of the ground
to
or
the financial
raised,
planning world, how do we think, what are we doing, what are we talking about, raising the bar for financial education.
So I learned
critical.
something today, folks.
And that's
my takeaway.
what we're doing here.
But
the other side of this is as well.
We're going to be talking
We're
about
financial planners.
If some of the
you
trends
are looking to work with a financial planner, if
the
you
supply and the demand story, as we were talking about earlier,
for you
is really a
to
huge
understand
part
the important things
where the industry
right
is
now
going, or where the
and how you're going
opportunities
to
are
get
as
to
well.
your goals, or how you're going to
with
retire
that,
successfully.
That's
what we're doing as well. If you have $250,000 of investable assets,
well, I think the supply piece.
Give us a call.
As we were talking about last,
it's free to you.
I think I want to jump back on
it
Amazon
is
because
worth your time.
The thing is
to pick
that
up that phone
we have all
and give us a call
cans,
and discover what complete wealth
seltzers and everything
management
delivered.
looks
I mean,
like. Ben and I are excited about the opportunity to partner with you and give you that financial plan that's going to make the next step so much better understood and get you where you need to go.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Whatever they are, Lyft and Uber, they're all buying these companies out. And then, so however you're going to attack food from an investment, you have to, again, go back to the value space. Saying, where is the stock not really getting its attributed value out of maybe that play or what that long-term opportunity? But when I think about the grocery store space, I really think that is an area that has just not blossomed into, we have these kind of, you walk into Whole Foods, right? And it's got like what's, they have, kind of quasi-appearing restaurants. You walk into Wegmans, you got quasi-appearing restaurant segments. You walk through like Vines and everything else, and it's a little bit of an Italian space. And they're not putting a lot of work in it. Everyone's already there making the food, handling the food. I mean, they're already paying for all these employees. So this new addition that they have on providing that food game, and they made it family friendly in most of these places too. So I really think that not only do you have the opportunity for a real estate play, you have a food play. I think both of those are areas that aren't going away where I get concerned. I mean, the retail space, I think about retail investing. I mean, I know people are big in that, but I think I always look for what I think is going to potentially be simple success. So do I think groceries are a good play? Yeah. Which companies and where, that's all up to you and your financial advisor. But I do think that that's a space I would be much more inclined to say long-term, there's an opportunity there in the right stock.
And you're right, Ben, because they say necessity's mother invention with the COVID thing. The bigger places, Amazon with Whole Foods and things like that. But even where I live, where there's very small co-op community grocers that are using locally sourced farmers and meats and such like that, mainly due to the health risks of people coming in and out. But I think also to compete with this other style of, as you said, the convenience of delivery, not carrying around cases of beverages and things like that, you can call or you can go online, even to these small stores, order, pull up curbside, and they'll just pop it in your car for you. So, they're constantly evolving to keep up with the big people as well.
But it's interesting to me when I think about the co-op in Concord here, where I live. I think about that. You go in there and you get your food. They've made it. It's a hot bar. You're not paying any extra for it. You know what I mean? And you go and they have a little place you can sit. And my wife and I sometimes will do it and be like, let's just go there and we'll grab something quick eat. And it's casual. It's not over the top. I don't got to wait for a waiter or waitress. The food's already prepared. I get to choose from my 10 things and. It's just quick.
Oh yeah, I grew up with your mother goes and your family shops once a week or twice a month or sometimes even once a month, and you just do a huge shopping. You get 3 carts full of food and you stock up for the month. We have a co-op in town as well, and it's a daily visit. And my wife has said, she likes the idea of planning the meal for the day and shopping fresh, whether it's prepared or whether it's your daily meal. Going in for the day, getting what you need, and getting out.
Yeah, I think these places are one of the few that really took advantage well of this whole pandemic thing. I mean, think about it. We all spent about a year where there was so few places you could actually go.
I went
grocery store being one of them.
I went shopping with my wife. because I wanted to get out of the house.
It was just, literally leaving the house.
Fighting about who's going shopping.
Where can you go, right?
We need milk.
That's hilarious that you say that, because that was me on Friday. I was like asking Kira, I was like, can I go with you? Please, can I go with you? She's like, what's the deal? And I was like, I need to go. I just need to get out of here. I need to go to some different place. And right now, Dollar Tree sounds great to me.
No. And I think that, this is an area, food is one of those things. And no matter how you're looking to invest, there's opportunity there in the right investments when you really know what you're doing. And I think it's with all the, I'm just going to say it. I think the Delta variant crap is crap, but if we do have one of those things, come through, that there's going to be another variant, another this, another that, another lockdown. If those are all things you're going to fear, this is a great kind of recessionary space to get into. I think if you know what you're doing and you really kind of get the right companies. But I definitely think that no matter how you get into investing, you got to understand the value of the asset. You got to know when you're getting in, when you're going to get out, and how that looks. And without that kind of background, you're really going to be lost. So
I like the conversation a lot. And as I kind of go through the discussion of, going back to the commodities and Tyson and, some of these other manufacturers, those can be great places to invest. But, my hesitancy with that is, do I really understand all of the fundamentals around that company? For instance, the Roundup
lawsuit
discussion earlier, lawsuits, like what is their exposure? So to those places for me are just greater risk, and maybe they are a greater reward, but I have the tendency to just kind of stay away from some of those things, even like your General Mills or some of those places. But I have the tendency to come back around to, what are the places that I like to go? What do I see? I'm not going to not go to Costco. There's Target.
Yeah.
There's, Walmart. And even last week we were talking about Walmart not really necessarily having a great entry point at the moment, or maybe it was a while ago that we were looking at that. Anyways, maybe today is a good entry point. I don't know. I have to talk more about that. But the point being is to picking your time and place, but then coming back to, I'm pretty darn sure Walmart isn't going to disappear. Target isn't going to disappear. Costco is going to stick around. Starbucks is going to stick around. And that's the long-term approach that I just like to have. Not soliciting anything there, just saying that's my preference.
Seth, I totally agree, but I would probably back end that with this. Like Chipotle was mentioned a few times already today, right? And Chipotle is skyrocketed high, and it's up there. And we've laughed about it because I actually owned it a long time ago, but the thing is I remember when Chipotle had like, what was it, 3 or 4 different incidences where their spinach or their salad caused what was it?
Romaine lettuce.
E.
coli and stuff like that. And people were like, they're going out of business. I remember that's when I was looking at stock. I was like, I don't think this place is going out of business. But I'll tell you right now, they could have an E. coli event right now, and goodness gracious, their stock's going to drop 20%.
And that's what I like. Hopefully they're having one of those so I can grab some more.
Well, okay. So that being said, right, I mean, that's a real concern, because if you're looking at these food stocks and you don't know the vulnerabilities, as you're pointing out, Seth. Right. And I think pointing out a company that has really skyrocketed significantly and benefited from this pandemic, and it's become a habit kind of for people to go to. We have one right across the street from our office here. You have to understand that risk, because if you're not an investor, and as you're saying, Seth, you're not an investor. And an investor is somebody who has a long-term perspective on an asset they believe has value long-term. So that's my point.
Any last thoughts?
I'm hungry.
You've been listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We've enjoyed the show today. We've been grateful for you for joining us. We thank you for calling us and giving us an opportunity to speak into your life and be trusted advisors with you. That's something we hold really sacred. And we want to appreciate you for that. So thank you so much. And we just also want to appreciate you for allowing us to be who we are and have fun with what we do on a daily basis, which is financial planning. You can also find us at Facebook. We're at /3D Investing. We're also on Twitter at BFG_LLC. And as always, you can also find us at yourmoneyontap.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for liking our podcast. We appreciate you, and we can't wait to make it a great day and a great life with you here at Money on Tap.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.
Well, bye.